You're nothing. Victoria Sterling's hand connected with Marcus Webb's face so hard, the sound echoed through the marble lobby. A 62-year-old black janitor, a single father, stood there, mop still in his grip, cheek burning red, while a billionaire CEO screamed inches from his face. He didn't flinch. He didn't speak. He just looked at her with eyes that had seen things she couldn't imagine. What Victoria didn't know? The man she just slapped had once held the fate of nations in those same steady hands. And the faded tattoo hidden beneath his sleeve would soon bring her empire crashing down. Comment your city below. Let's see how far this story travels. The coffee was still hot when it hit Marcus Webb's chest. Not warm, not lukewarm. Hot enough to make a grown man gasp. Hot enough to leave a mark. But Marcus didn't gasp. He didn't even step back. He simply stood there in the center of Sterling Corp's pristine lobby, brown liquid spreading across his faded blue janitor's uniform, and waited. Victoria Sterling lowered her empty cup, her manicured fingers trembling, not with regret, but with rage. "Are you deaf?" she hissed. "I said move!" Marcus looked down at his chest, then back up at her. "Ma'am, I was mopping where maintenance scheduled me to mop." "I don't care what maintenance scheduled. When I walk through my lobby, you disappear. You understand? You become invisible. That's what people like you do." The lobby had gone silent. Every click of a heel, every murmur of conversation, every ding of an elevator. Gone. 30, maybe 40 people stood frozen, watching the scene unfold like witnesses to a car crash they couldn't look away from. Marcus reached for the rag tucked into his belt. He began wiping the coffee from his uniform, movements slow, deliberate. "I apologize for being in your way, Miss Sterling."
"You apologize?" Victoria laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You think an apology fixes this? Look at me. Look at me when I'm talking to you."
He looked, and something in his eyes made her take half a step back. It was only half a step, barely noticeable. But Marcus noticed. He'd spent 30 years reading people, their fears, their tells, the micro-expressions that betrayed what their words tried to hide. This woman was powerful, yes. Rich, certainly. But underneath all that designer silk and practiced authority, she was terrified. Not of him. Of everything. "What are you staring at?" Victoria snapped, recovering. "You got something to say?" "No, ma'am." "That's right, because you have nothing to say. You have nothing, period. You're a 60-year-old man pushing a mop. You think that uniform makes you somebody? You think showing up here every day and cleaning our toilets earns you respect?" A young woman near the reception desk, couldn't have been more than 25, whispered to her colleague, "Someone should stop this." No one moved. Victoria stepped closer. She was tall in her heels, nearly eye level with Marcus. "You know what I see when I look at you? I see failure. I see a man who had 60 years to make something of himself and ended up scrubbing floors for minimum wage. You're not a person. You're furniture. And furniture doesn't stand in my way." Marcus's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Nothing to say?" Victoria pressed. "No excuses? No sob story about how life wasn't fair?" "Life is what it is, ma'am." "Oh, that's profound. Did you read that on a fortune cookie? Maybe while you were eating your sad little lunch alone in the maintenance closet?" A security guard at the far end of the lobby, a heavy-set man named Jerome, started walking toward them. But before he could get halfway, Victoria's assistant Daniel cut him off. "Let it play out," Daniel murmured. "You know how she gets when someone interrupts." Jerome stopped. He looked at Marcus, and something passed between them. A recognition, maybe. A shared understanding of what it meant to wear a uniform that made you invisible to people like Victoria Sterling. "I want you gone," Victoria said suddenly. "Today, right now. Get your things and get out of my building." Marcus blinked. "Ma'am?" "You heard me. You're fired. I don't want to see your face here again." "I've worked here for 3 years," Marcus said quietly. "Never had a complaint. Never missed a day." "Are you arguing with me?" "No, ma'am. Just stating facts." Victoria's eyes narrowed. "Facts? You want facts? Here's a fact. I own this building. I own this company. I own the ground you're standing on. And when I tell you to disappear, you disappear. That's the only fact that matters." She turned to Daniel, who was clutching his tablet like a shield. "Call HR. Have this man escorted out. And dock his final paycheck for the cost of my dry cleaning." Daniel hesitated. "Victoria, maybe we should—" "Did I ask for your opinion?" "No, but—" "Then do what I said." Marcus began gathering his mop and bucket. His movements were unhurried, methodical. The movements of a man who had learned long ago that rushing served no purpose. As he lifted the mop, his sleeve rode up slightly, revealing the edge of something dark on his forearm. A tattoo. Daniel noticed it. Just a glimpse. A wing, maybe, or a blade. Something military. He filed it away in his mind without knowing why. "Wait." Everyone turned. The voice had come from the elevator bank, where a tall woman in her early 30s stood, frozen mid-step. Evelyn Sterling, Victoria's daughter, and the company's chief operations officer. "Mom, what the hell is going on?" Victoria smoothed her blazer. "Just taking out the trash, darling. Nothing for you to worry about." Evelyn walked forward, her heels clicking against the marble. She looked at Marcus, at the coffee stains spreading across his chest, at the quiet dignity in his posture, at the way he held himself like a man waiting out a storm he knew would pass. "You threw coffee on him?" "He was in my way." "He was doing his job." "His job is to be invisible. He failed." Evelyn turned to Marcus. "Sir, I am so sorry. This is completely unacceptable." Marcus met her eyes. "It's all right, ma'am. I've had worse days." Something flickered in his expression. A shadow of memory, there and gone in an instant. Evelyn caught it. This man had secrets. This man had stories. This man was not what he appeared to be. "What's your name?" she asked. "Marcus Webb, ma'am." "How long have you worked here, Mr. Webb?" 3 years this February." Evelyn turned to her mother. "You're firing a 3-year employee because he was standing in the wrong place at the wrong time?" "I'm firing him because I can," Victoria replied coolly. "Because this is my company, not yours. Not yet. And because people need to understand that there are consequences for incompetence." "Incompetence? He was mopping a floor." "He was in my way." Mother and daughter stared at each other. The lobby held its breath. Finally, Victoria smiled. A thin, dangerous smile that Evelyn knew all too well. "You want to save him? Fine. He's your responsibility now. But the next time one of your little charity cases embarrasses me in my own building, I won't be so generous." She strode toward the elevator, heels striking the floor like gunshots. "And Mr. Webb?" she called over her shoulder. "Clean up that coffee before someone slips. We wouldn't want a lawsuit." The elevator doors closed behind her. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, the lobby came back to life. Conversations resumed. Heels clicked. Life went on. Because that's what life did, even in the aftermath of cruelty. Evelyn approached Marcus. "I am truly sorry. My mother, she has her issues." "Rich people usually do," Marcus said, then caught himself. "Forgive me, ma'am. That was out of line." Evelyn almost smiled. "No, It was honest. I appreciate honesty. She paused. Are you okay? That coffee was hot. I'll live. Let me at least have someone look at that. With respect, ma'am, I've had hot coffee thrown at me before. This isn't even the worst thing that's happened to me this week. Evelyn frowned. What happened this week? Marcus's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. That's a story for another time, ma'am. If you'll excuse me, I have a floor to mop. He turned away, and as he did, his sleeve rode up again. This time, Evelyn saw it clearly. A tattoo of a trident wrapped in olive branches, with 3 numbers beneath it. She knew that symbol. Her ex-husband had served in the Navy. He'd talked about men who wore that mark, the ones who came back different from the wars, if they came back at all. The ones who had seen things that couldn't be unseen. Mr. Webb, she called. He stopped, but didn't turn. That tattoo on your arm, is that? He looked at her over his shoulder. Like I said, ma'am, story for another time. He walked away, mop and bucket rattling softly, and Evelyn stood rooted to the spot, her mind racing.
Daniel found her 20 minutes later in her office, staring at her computer screen.
You've been searching military insignias for the last 15 minutes, he observed. Want to tell me why? Evelyn leaned back. The janitor my mother just humiliated. Marcus Webb. There's something about him. He's a janitor, Evelyn. No offense, but people don't become janitors because they're overqualified. Pull his file. Daniel hesitated. His employee file? His everything file. Background check, references, whatever we have. That's kind of invasive. Daniel, please. He sighed and sat down at the adjacent terminal. A few keystrokes, and Marcus Webb's employee profile appeared on screen. Okay, let's see. Marcus Webb, age 62. Started as a janitorial contractor 3 years ago. Moved to full-time 18 months later. Emergency contact. Lily Webb, daughter, age 9. Previous employment, Daniel scrolled. That's weird. What? There's nothing here.
His work history before Sterling Corp is completely blank. No previous employers, no references. Just a note that says, verified manually by HR. Evelyn frowned. How does someone work for 60 years and have no employment history? Maybe he was self-employed? Or worked off the books? For 60 years? Daniel shrugged. Some people fall through the cracks. But Evelyn wasn't buying it. She'd seen the way Marcus carried himself, the way he'd absorbed her mother's abuse without flinching, the way his eyes had calculated every person in that lobby without appearing to look at anyone. That wasn't a man who fell through cracks. That was a man who knew exactly where the cracks were and how to use them. I want to know who he really is, she said quietly. Evelyn, with all due respect, why do you care? Your mom throws coffee on people every other week. Last month it was the mail clerk. Month before that, it was the IT guy. She's an equal opportunity tyrant. This is different. How? Evelyn looked at him. Because most people cry when she does that. Most people argue, or beg, or at least show some kind of emotion. Marcus Webb just stood there, like it was nothing. Like she was nothing. Daniel considered this. Maybe he's just used to being mistreated. Or maybe he's been through things that make a cup of hot coffee seem trivial. That's a pretty big leap. Then help me make it smaller. Find out who Marcus Webb is. And Daniel, keep this between us. If my mother finds out I'm digging into a janitor's background, she'll never let me hear the end of it. Daniel nodded and headed for the door. Then he stopped. That tattoo you mentioned, what did it look like? A trident with olive branches, and 3 numbers beneath it. 726. Daniel's face went pale. "What?" Evelyn asked. "What does that mean?" "I don't know for sure, but I know someone who might. Give me a couple hours." Marcus clocked out at 6:47 p.m. The sun was setting over the city as he walked to the bus stop, his chest still tender beneath the fresh undershirt he'd changed into. The burn wasn't bad. He'd had worse from actual fires, but it served as a reminder of the day's events. 3 years. 3 years of keeping his head down, collecting his paycheck, going home to Lily. 3 years of being invisible, of being nobody, of pretending that the man he used to be had never existed. And in 3 minutes, Victoria Sterling had threatened to tear all of it apart. His phone buzzed. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen. "Lily." "Daddy, when are you coming home? I made you a picture." He smiled, his first real smile of the day, and typed back, "Marcus, on my way, sweetheart. Can't wait to see it." The bus arrived. Marcus climbed aboard, found a seat near the back, and watched the city slide past the window. Somewhere out there, Daniel was digging into his past. Marcus knew the signs, the way the young man had looked at his tattoo, the questions in his eyes. It was only a matter of time before someone connected the dots. And when they did, Marcus closed his eyes and let the bus carry him home. He'd cross that bridge when he came to it. He'd been crossing bridges his whole life, some of them on fire, some of them under enemy fire, some of them made of nothing but faith and adrenaline. A cup of hot coffee? A spoiled CEO with a God complex? Child's play. The apartment was small but clean. Lily was waiting at the door when Marcus walked in, her face lighting up like a sunrise. "Daddy!" He scooped her up, ignoring the twinge of pain in his chest, and held her close. She smelled like crayons and apple juice and everything good in the world. "Hey, baby girl. How was school?" "Good. Miss Patterson said my reading is getting better. And I made you a picture. Want to see?" More than anything. She wriggled out of his arms and ran to the kitchen table, returning with a piece of construction paper covered in crayon marks. Marcus studied it with the seriousness of an art critic examining a masterpiece. "This is beautiful, Lily. Is this me?" "Uh-huh, and that's you at work, and that's your mop, and that's the big building where you clean stuff." Marcus looked at the stick figure in blue, surrounded by scribbles of gray and silver. His daughter had drawn him tiny, dwarfed by the enormous building around him. That's how she saw him. Small. Invisible. "I love it," he said, and meant every word. "Are you hungry, Daddy? I tried to make a sandwich, but I couldn't reach the peanut butter." "How about I make us both something? Can we have grilled cheese?" "We can have whatever you want, sweetheart." As Marcus moved around the tiny kitchen, heating the pan and buttering the bread, Lily sat at the table and watched him. "Daddy?" "Yeah, baby?" "Why do you always smell like soap when you come home?" "Because Daddy cleans things at work. Lots of things." "Do people say thank you?" Marcus paused, knife hovering over the cheese. "Sometimes." "What about today? Did anyone say thank you today?" The coffee stain on his chest seemed to throb. He thought of Victoria Sterling's face, twisted with contempt. He thought of the silent lobby, all those people watching, none of them moving to help. "You know what, Lily? Someone did say thank you today. A very nice lady named Evelyn." Lily beamed. "See? People are nice." "Some of them are," Marcus agreed. "Some of them definitely are." He finished making the sandwiches, and they ate together at the small table by the window, Lily chattering about her day while Marcus listened with half his attention on her and half on the storm he knew was coming. Later, after Lily was asleep, Marcus sat alone in the darkness of the living room. He rolled up his sleeve and looked at the tattoo that had gotten him into so much trouble over the years. the trident, the olive branches, the numbers, 726. 726. That was how many days his team had spent in a place that didn't officially exist, doing things that would never be acknowledged, losing friends who would never be mourned by anyone but the men who'd served beside them. 726 days that had earned him a chest full of medals he couldn't display, a retirement package that barely covered rent, and a body that ached in places no doctor could explain. And now? Now he was a janitor, a single father, a man who cleaned toilets and mopped floors and pretended that none of it mattered, because the only thing that actually mattered was the little girl sleeping in the next room. His phone buzzed again. Unknown number. He answered anyway.
Marcus Webb? Who's asking? Someone who knows what 726 means.
Marcus's grip tightened on the phone.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Sure you do. Listen, I'm not trying to cause trouble. My name is Daniel Park. I work for Evelyn Sterling. She asked me to look into your background and, well, I found some things.
What kind of things?
The kind that aren't supposed to exist. The kind that are buried under so much black ink it took me 3 hours just to confirm you're a real person. A pause. Commander Webb. The title hit Marcus like a punch to the gut.
I haven't been called that in a long time.
I know, and I know why you're working as a janitor. I know about your wife. I know about Lily. I know you've been keeping a low profile because the things you did overseas made you a lot of enemies. Enemies who would very much like to know where you are. Marcus's voice hardened. What do you want? Nothing. I just thought you should know that Victoria Sterling is about to have a very bad week. And you might want to be there when it happens. Why? Because in 3 days, there's a Pentagon delegation coming to Sterling Corp. They're reviewing a defense contract worth $800 million. And one of those delegates, well, let's just say he remembers you. Marcus said nothing. The name's General Harrison, Daniel continued. Ring any bells? It did. It rang so many bells, Marcus could barely hear himself think. General William Harrison. The man who'd sent Marcus and his team into hell. The man who'd made promises that never got kept. The man who'd shaken Marcus's hand at his retirement ceremony and sworn that his service would never be forgotten, then promptly forgot about him the moment he walked out the door. I don't care about Harrison, Marcus said finally. I don't care about the Pentagon. I just want to do my job and go home to my daughter. Even if Victoria Sterling is going to spend the next 3 days making your life miserable? I've had worse. I don't doubt it. But here's the thing, Commander. Evelyn Sterling isn't like her mother. She saw something in you today. Something real. And if you give her a chance, she might be the first person in a long time who actually sees you. Not the janitor, not the invisible man, but you. Why are you telling me this? Because I spent 2 years in uniform myself. Army intelligence. Never saw combat, not like you did. But I know what it means to serve. And I know what it looks like when a good man is being treated like garbage. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. What do you want me to do? Show up for work tomorrow. That's it. Just show up, do your job, and let the rest unfold. And if Victoria comes after me again? Then do what you did today. Stand your ground. Be the man you've always been. A pause. The Pentagon delegation arrives Friday. General Harrison will be in the boardroom at noon. I have a feeling that's going to be a meeting no one forgets. The line went dead. Marcus sat in the darkness, phone still pressed to his ear, mind racing through possibilities. Friday. 3 days. He looked at the door to Lily's room, where his daughter slept peacefully, unaware that her father had once been something more than a man who pushed a mop. "All right," he whispered to no one. "All right." Whatever was coming, he would face it the way he'd faced everything else in his life. Head on, heart steady, and with the knowledge that some battles were worth fighting, even when the only weapon you had was the truth. Marcus arrived at Sterling Corp at 5:47 a.m., 13 minutes before his shift officially began. The lobby was empty except for the night security guard, a young man named Travis, who always looked half asleep at this hour. "Morning, Mr. Webb." "Morning, Travis. Quiet night?" "Always is." "Hey, I heard about what happened yesterday." "With Miss Sterling." Travis lowered his voice. "That was messed up, man. You didn't deserve that." Marcus shrugged. "It's already forgotten." "Is it, though?" Marcus didn't answer. He signed in, grabbed his cart from the maintenance closet, and headed for the east wing. The building felt different at this hour. Peaceful, almost sacred. No clicking heels, no ringing phones, no voices demanding things from people who had nothing left to give. He liked the silence. He'd learned to love it during those long nights in the desert, when silence meant safety and noise meant death. His phone buzzed, a text from Daniel Park. "She's coming in early today. Heads up." Marcus read the message twice, then deleted it. He didn't know why the young man was helping him, and he'd learned long ago not to trust kindness that came without strings. But Daniel had been right about one thing. Something was happening at Sterling Corp. Something that went beyond the spilled mop bucket and a billionaire's bruised ego. He pushed his cart toward the executive washrooms and got to work. The hours passed slowly. By 8 a.m., the building had come alive. Employees streaming through the doors, elevators dinging, the great machine of corporate America grinding into motion. Marcus moved through it all like a ghost, invisible and unremarkable, just the way he preferred. At 9:15, Victoria Sterling arrived. He heard her before he saw her. The sharp staccato of her heels, the impatient snap of her voice as she berated someone on her phone. He was cleaning the windows near the conference room when she walked past, and for a moment, their eyes met. She stopped. "You're still here?" It wasn't a question. "Yes, ma'am." Victoria's lip curled. "I thought I fired you." "Your daughter overruled you, ma'am." The words hung in the air between them, dangerous and sharp. Marcus watched Victoria's face cycle through emotions. Surprise, then anger, then something that looked almost like respect. Almost. "Evelyn always did have a soft spot for strays," Victoria said finally. "Enjoy it while it lasts, Mr. Webb. My daughter's kindness has an expiration date. Everything does." She walked away without waiting for a response. Marcus went back to cleaning the windows. His reflection stared back at him. A tired man in a blue uniform, hands steady, face unreadable. The same face he'd worn in 100 briefing rooms, 1,000 firefights, 10,000 moments when showing weakness meant death. Victoria Sterling thought she was powerful. She had no idea what real power looked like. 3 floors up, Evelyn was waiting in her office when Daniel arrived. "Close the door." He did, then sat down across from her desk. "You're not going to like what I found." "Tell me anyway." Daniel opened his laptop and turned it toward her. Marcus Webb, born 1963 in Detroit, Michigan. Enlisted in the Navy at 18. Made it through BUD/S on his first attempt. That's the training program for SEALs. Only about 20% of candidates survive it. He's a Navy SEAL? Was. But that's not the interesting part. Daniel clicked to the next screen. After his initial service, Webb was recruited into a special operations unit. The name is classified. I mean, really classified. Not just government redacted, but Black ink doesn't exist classified. I had to call in 3 favors just to confirm it was real. Evelyn leaned forward. What kind of unit? The kind that handles problems no one else can handle. Hostage rescues, counterterrorism, regime changes. According to my source, Webb spent 15 years doing missions that officially never happened, in countries we officially were never in. And then? And then he retired, 8 years ago. His wife was diagnosed with cancer, and he requested an early discharge to take care of her. She died 3 years later. He's been raising their daughter alone ever since. Evelyn sat back, processing this. So a decorated special operations commander is working as a janitor in my mother's building. That's about the size of it. Why? With his background, he could work private security, consulting, anything. Daniel shrugged. Maybe he wanted out. Some guys come back from that life and they just can't do it anymore. They need something quiet, something normal. Mopping floors isn't normal. It's invisible. Maybe that's the point. Evelyn thought about the man she'd seen in the lobby yesterday. The stillness in his posture, the calm in his eyes, the way he'd absorbed her mother's cruelty without breaking. It made sense now. Victoria Sterling's tantrum was nothing compared to what Marcus Webb had faced. What about the tattoo? She asked. The trident with the numbers. That's where it gets really interesting. Daniel pulled up another image, a military insignia, faded and worn. The trident is standard SEAL iconography, but the numbers, 726, that's a unit designation. And the unit it designates, he paused. Evelyn, do you know what Operation Nightfall was? No. Neither does anyone else. Officially, it never happened. But according to the rumors, it was one of the most dangerous missions in modern military history. A hostage rescue in a country I can't name, involving targets I can't identify, with a success rate that should have been impossible. And Marcus Webb was part of it? Marcus Webb led it. He was the commanding officer. And here's the thing. The mission went sideways. Bad intel, enemy reinforcements, the whole nightmare scenario. Webb lost half his team getting those hostages out. But he got them out. Every single one. Evelyn stared at the screen. How many hostages? 17, including 4 children and a U.S. ambassador. The room went quiet. My mother threw coffee on a man who saved an ambassador's life, Evelyn said slowly. And 4 kids. And 13 other people. And probably hundreds more we don't know about. Evelyn closed her eyes. Does she know? Does anyone know? Not yet, but that's going to change on Friday. What happens Friday? Daniel hesitated. The Pentagon delegation. The Defense Contract Review. One of the generals attending is William Harrison. I know Harrison. He's been pushing hard for this contract. He also served with Webb. They were in the same theater of operations for 2 years. Harrison was the one who sent Webb's team into Nightfall. Evelyn's eyes widened. Harrison knows who Marcus is. He will the second he sees him. And when that happens, Daniel spread his hands. I honestly don't know what's going to happen. But I think your mother is about to learn a very expensive lesson about judging people by their uniforms. Evelyn stood and walked to the window. The city sprawled beneath her. Millions of people living millions of lives, most of them invisible to the people in towers like this one. I want to talk to him, she said. Webb? Yes. Evelyn, I don't think that's a good idea. The man clearly values his privacy. If you go poking around... I'm not going to poke around. I'm going to apologize. Properly. She turned to face Daniel. My mother humiliated him in front of 50 people. The least I can do is treat him like a human being. And if he doesn't want to be treated like anything, if he just wants to mop floors and go home, then I'll respect that, but I have to try. Daniel sighed. You're going to do this whether I think it's a good idea or not, aren't you? Yes. Fine. He's usually in the basement maintenance room during his lunch break. 12:30. Evelyn nodded. Thank you, Daniel, for all of this. Don't thank me yet. I have a feeling this is going to get a lot more complicated before it gets simple. Marcus was eating a sandwich in the maintenance room when the door opened. He looked up, expecting to see one of the other janitors. Instead, Evelyn Sterling stood in the doorway, looking entirely out of place in her designer suit and expensive jewelry. Mr. Webb, may I come in? He set down his sandwich. It's your building, ma'am. It's my mother's building. There's a difference. She stepped inside, closing the door behind her. I'm sorry to interrupt your lunch. I won't take much of your time. What can I do for you? Evelyn took a breath. I wanted to apologize for yesterday. What my mother did was inexcusable, and I should have done more to stop it. You did plenty, ma'am. You saved my job. That's not enough. She met his eyes. I know who you are, Mr. Webb. I know what you did. Marcus's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. Is that so? Operation Nightfall. The Winged Vanguard. 15 years of service in places that don't exist, doing things that never happened. She paused. You saved 17 lives in a single mission. You lost friends. You came home broken, and you put yourself back together. And now you're mopping floors in a building owned by a woman who treats you like garbage. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Who told you all this? Does it matter? It might. Evelyn sat down across from him, uninvited, but not unwelcome. My assistant has contacts in the military. He made some calls. I'm not going to pretend I understand everything he told me, but I understand enough. She leaned forward. You're not invisible, Mr. Webb. Not to me. Not anymore. Marcus looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time. She was younger than he'd initially thought, maybe 32 or 33. She had her mother's bone structure, but none of her cruelty. Her eyes were tired, the eyes of someone who spent their life cleaning up messes they didn't make. He recognized that look. He'd seen it in the mirror every day for the past 8 years. Why are you telling me this? He asked. Because on Friday, there's going to be a Pentagon delegation in our boardroom. General William Harrison will be there. Marcus's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. You know him, Evelyn said. It wasn't a question. I knew him, a long time ago. He's going to recognize you. Probably. And when he does, my mother is going to find out that the man she humiliated is a war hero. In front of investors. In front of cameras. In front of everyone. Marcus picked up his sandwich again, took a bite, chewed slowly. Sounds like that's your mother's problem, not mine. It could be your opportunity. He stopped chewing. What do you mean? Evelyn chose her next words carefully. My mother has spent her entire life believing that power comes from money, from status, from the ability to make other people feel small. She's never met someone she couldn't buy or bully. And you think I'm that someone? I think you're the only person in this building who isn't afraid of her. And I think that terrifies her more than she'll ever admit. Marcus swallowed his bite and set the sandwich down again. Miss Sterling, I'm going to tell you something, and I need you to really hear it. I'm not here for revenge. I'm not here to teach your mother a lesson. I'm here because this job has flexible hours and decent insurance, and my daughter needs me home by 6 o'clock every night. That's it.
That's the whole story.
I understand that.
Do you? Because what you're describing sounds a lot like you want me to be some kind of weapon against your own mother.
Evelyn flinched.
That's not— Yes, it is. His voice was gentle, but firm. You've got problems with your mother. I get it. Rich families are complicated.
But I'm not going to be your pawn, and I'm not going to be her victim. I'm just going to do my job and go home to my kid.
The room fell silent. Finally, Evelyn nodded.
You're right. I'm sorry. I didn't come here to manipulate you.
Then why did you come?
She thought about it. I guess I wanted to understand how someone like you ends up in a place like this. How you can stand there and take what she dishes out without breaking.
Marcus smiled faintly. You want to know the secret?
Yes.
There is no secret. You just decide what matters and what doesn't. Your mother's opinion of me? Doesn't matter. Her money, her power, her building? Doesn't matter. My daughter's smile when I walk through the door? That matters. Everything else is just noise. Evelyn stared at him.
That's surprisingly simple.
The best things usually are. She stood, smoothing her skirt.
I should let you finish your lunch. But Mr. Webb, Marcus, I meant what I said. You're not invisible. Not to me.
She paused at the door.
Whatever happens on Friday, I want you to know that I see you. The real you.
I appreciate that, ma'am.
Evelyn, please.
He nodded slowly. Evelyn. She left, and Marcus sat alone in the maintenance room, surrounded by mops and buckets and industrial cleaning supplies. He thought about what she'd said, about Friday, about Harrison, about the collision that was coming whether he wanted it or not. He'd spent 8 years building a wall between who he was and who he'd been. 8 years of anonymity. 8 years of peace. And now that wall was about to come crashing down. His phone buzzed, a text from the school. St. Mary's Elementary. Reminder, parent-teacher conference tomorrow at 4 p.m. Please confirm attendance. He typed back a quick confirmation and pocketed his phone. Whatever storms were coming, Lily came first. She always came first.
That evening, Marcus picked up Lily from her after-school program and took her to the park near their apartment. It was a small park, just a swing set, a slide, and a few benches, but Lily loved it. "Push me higher, Daddy." He pushed, and she soared, her laughter carrying across the empty playground. "Daddy?"
"Yeah, baby?"
"Why do you always look tired?"
The question caught him off guard.
"Do I?"
"Uh-huh.
Your eyes look sad sometimes, like you're thinking about something far away."
Marcus caught the swing and held it still, crouching down to meet his daughter's eyes. "You know what I think about when I look far away?"
"What?"
"You. I think about how lucky I am to have you. And I think about your mom and how much she would have loved to see you grow up." Lily's face softened.
"Do you miss her?"
"Every day, sweetheart. Every single day."
"Me too."
She reached out and touched his face.
"But we have each other, right?"
"Always."
"Promise?"
"Promise." She hugged him then, her small arms wrapping around his neck, and Marcus held her tight. In that moment, nothing else existed. Not Victoria Sterling, not the Pentagon, not the ghosts of his past. Just a father and his daughter, together against the world.
"Daddy?"
"Yeah?"
"Can we get ice cream?"
He laughed, a real laugh, the kind that came from somewhere deep. "Yeah, baby, we can get ice cream." They walked hand in hand to the corner store, and Marcus bought her a cone with rainbow sprinkles, her favorite. As they walked home, Lily chattering about her day, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Maybe everything would be okay. Maybe Friday would come and go without incident. Maybe Harrison wouldn't recognize him, or wouldn't care, or wouldn't say anything. Maybe. But deep down, Marcus knew better. He'd spent 30 years reading people, reading situations, reading the invisible currents that determined who lived and who died. And every instinct he had was screaming that something was about to change. He just didn't know what. That night, after Lily was asleep, Marcus sat in the darkness of his living room and made a phone call. It rang 3 times before someone picked up. This is a surprise. The voice was gravelly, weathered by age and cigarettes. Marcus Webb, I thought you were dead. Hello, Ray. Don't hello Ray me. It's been 5 years. 5 years without a word, and now you call me at 11 o'clock at night? I need information. A long pause. What kind of information? William Harrison. What's he been doing since he retired? Harrison, Ray's voice sharpened. Why do you want to know about Harrison? He's going to be at my workplace on Friday. Pentagon delegation. I want to know what I'm walking into. Your workplace? Marcus, where the hell are you working that the Pentagon shows up? It's a long story. I've got time. I don't. Just tell me about Harrison. Ray sighed, the sigh of a man who knew he wasn't going to win this argument. Fine. Harrison retired 3 years ago. Full honors, fat pension, the whole hero treatment. He's been consulting for defense contractors ever since. Big money, big connections, big ego. Same as always. Worse, the man's got political ambitions now. Rumor is he's positioning himself for a Senate run. He needs wins, big public wins, to build his profile. And this defense contract? Sterling Corp? Yeah, that's one of his projects. $800 million for some kind of advanced surveillance system. Harrison's been pushing hard to make it happen. If he pulls it off, it'll be a feather in his cap. Marcus processed this. What's his relationship with Victoria Sterling? Professional, maybe more. The rumor mill says they've been seen together at events, but nothing confirmed. Ray paused. Marcus, what's really going on? Why are you asking about this? Because I have a feeling that Friday is going to be interesting. Interesting how? The kind of interesting that makes the news. Ray was quiet for a long moment. You're not planning anything stupid, are you? I'm not planning anything at all. But you know how it is, Ray. Sometimes the universe has plans of its own. Yeah, and sometimes the universe gets people killed. Ray's voice hardened. Listen to me, Marcus. Harrison is not the same man you knew. He's connected now, powerful, protected. If you go after him, I'm not going after anyone. I'm just a janitor. Bullshit. You've never been just anything in your life. Marcus smiled faintly. Good night, Ray. Marcus. He hung up. The apartment was quiet. Through the thin walls he could hear Lily's soft breathing, the sound of innocence, of peace, of everything he'd fought to protect. He looked at his hands. They were older now, weathered and worn, but still steady, still capable. He'd spent 8 years pretending to be ordinary, 8 years hiding from a past that refused to stay buried. And now that past was coming for him, whether he wanted it or not. Friday, 2 days away. He closed his eyes and let the silence wash over him. Whatever came next, he would face it the same way he'd faced everything else, with his head up, his heart steady, and his daughter's face in his mind. Some battles chose you. All you could do was be ready when they came. Friday arrived like a storm that had been building for days. Marcus clocked in at 5:47 a.m., same as always. He signed his name in the maintenance log, grabbed his cart, and headed for the East Wing. Travis,
The night security guard gave him a knowing look as he passed. "Big day today, Mr. Webb." "Is it?" "Pentagon people. Cameras everywhere. Miss Sterling's been screaming at everyone since 4 in the morning." Travis shook his head. "I don't envy anyone who crosses her path today." Marcus nodded and kept walking. His chest felt tight, but his hands were steady. They were always steady. By 9 a.m., the building was buzzing with activity. Extra security had been posted at every entrance. Camera crews set up equipment in the lobby. Executives rushed past in their best suits, clutching folders and tablets like talismans against failure. Marcus moved through it all like a shadow, mopping floors that didn't need mopping, emptying trash cans that were already empty. He was waiting. He'd been waiting for 2 days. At 11:15, his phone buzzed. "They're here, boardroom, in 45 minutes. You should be there." Marcus read the message, then deleted it. He finished his section of the hallway, returned his cart to the maintenance closet, and checked his reflection in the small mirror by the door. Same face, same eyes, same man. But today, that man was about to step out of the shadows. He took the service elevator to the executive floor. The hallways were crowded with assistants and PR people, all of them too busy to notice one more janitor pushing a mop bucket. The boardroom doors were propped open. Inside, he could see the long table, the leather chairs, the wall of windows overlooking the city. Caterers were setting up coffee and pastries. A technician tested the projection equipment. And at the head of the table, Victoria Sterling stood like a queen surveying her kingdom. She was wearing red today, a power color, meant to intimidate. Her hair was perfect, her makeup flawless, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. She was talking to a man Marcus didn't recognize, laughing at something he said, her hand touching his arm with practiced intimacy. Marcus positioned himself near the window and began cleaning. No one looked at him. No one ever did. At 11:45, the delegation arrived. Marcus heard them before he saw them. The room filled with people, military officers, corporate executives, investors, assistants. Chairs scraped against the floor. Papers rustled. The air hummed with tension and anticipation. Marcus kept cleaning. His back was still to the table, but he could see their reflections in the window glass. Harrison was seated directly across from Victoria, his silver hair gleaming under the lights. He looked older than Marcus remembered, heavier, softer, but his eyes were the same, cold, calculating. The eyes of a man who had spent his life sending other men to die. "Before we begin," Victoria said, "I want to thank you all for being here. This contract represents the future of Sterling Corp, and, I believe, the future of American defense technology." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. "Our proposal is comprehensive," she continued. "Advanced surveillance systems, real-time data analysis, predictive threat assessment. Everything the Pentagon needs to stay ahead of our enemies." Harrison nodded slowly. "I think you'll find, General Harrison, I don't know who's been feeding you these rumors, but I can assure you, it's not a rumor if there's video." Everyone turned to look at Daniel, who was standing near the door with his tablet. "What did you say?" Victoria's voice was ice. Daniel stepped forward, his hands trembling slightly, but his voice steady. "There's video, ma'am, from the lobby, Monday morning." The silence was absolute. Harrison raised an eyebrow. "Video of what?" Daniel looked at Victoria, then at the tablet in his hands. "Of Mrs. Sterling assaulting an employee." The word hung in the air like a grenade. "That's ridiculous," Victoria snapped. "I've never assaulted anyone in my life." "Ma'am, you threw hot coffee on him. And you slapped him, in front of 50 witnesses." Victoria's eyes narrowed.
That janitor? You're seriously bringing up that janitor?
His name is Marcus Webb. Something flickered in Harrison's expression. A twitch. A recognition. His eyes moved slowly from Daniel to the window, where Marcus stood with his back still turned. "What did you say?" Harrison's voice had changed, lower, sharper. "Marcus Webb," Daniel repeated. "He's worked here for 3 years." Harrison stood up so abruptly that his chair scraped against the floor. Everyone in the room flinched. Everyone except Marcus, who continued cleaning as if nothing was happening. "That man," Harrison said slowly, pointing toward the window. "The janitor. Turn around." Marcus stopped mopping. The room held its breath. Slowly, deliberately, Marcus turned to face the table. Harrison's face went white. For a long moment, no one spoke. No one moved. The air itself seemed to freeze. Then Harrison did something that no one in that room expected. He saluted. "Commander Webb." The words hit Victoria like a physical blow. She staggered back a step, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. "Commander?" she managed. Harrison didn't look at her. His eyes were fixed on Marcus, his hands still raised in salute. "Sir, it's an honor." Marcus stood motionless for a beat, then slowly returned the salute, a gesture so ingrained that it came without thought. "At ease, General." The room exploded into murmurs. Executives turned to each other confused. Military officers exchanged shocked glances. Victoria stood frozen, her face cycling through emotions, confusion, disbelief, and something that looked terrifyingly like fear. "Someone tell me what the hell is going on," she demanded. Harrison finally lowered his hand. "Mrs. Sterling, do you know who you've been employing as a janitor for the past 3 years?" "Obviously not." "That man," Harrison pointed at Marcus with something approaching reverence, "is Commander Marcus Webb, United States Navy SEALs, retired. 15 years of Special Operations Service, 3 Silver Stars, 2 Purple Hearts, and the Congressional Medal of Honor." The Congressional Medal of Honor. Victoria's face went from red to white in an instant. "The Medal of the highest military decoration in the United States," Harrison continued, "awarded for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of life above and beyond the call of duty." He turned to face Victoria fully. "This man saved 17 American lives during Operation Nightfall, including 4 children and Ambassador Richardson. He lost 6 members of his team getting them out. 6 brothers, dead, because they followed him into hell, and he brought everyone else home." Victoria opened her mouth, but no words came out. Harrison wasn't finished. "And you threw hot coffee on him? You slapped him? You called him nothing?" "I didn't know." "You didn't care to know." Harrison's voice rose. "That's the problem, Mrs. Sterling. You looked at a man in a uniform and decided he wasn't worth your time. You didn't see a human being. You saw furniture." One of the other military officers, a woman with colonel's eagles on her shoulders, stood up. "Commander Webb, sir. I served under General Morrison in the Pacific Fleet. He spoke of you often, said you were the finest soldier he ever knew." Marcus nodded slightly. General Morrison was a good man. "Is it true," she asked, "about Nightfall?" "I don't talk about Nightfall, Colonel." "But the reports?" "The reports are classified." His voice was quiet but firm. "What happened there stays there. The men who died deserve better than to be turned into a spectacle." The colonel nodded slowly, respect evident in her eyes. Victoria finally found her voice. "Mr. Webb, Commander Webb, I had no idea. If I had known—" "You would have treated me differently?" Marcus met her eyes for the first time. That's the problem, ma'am. Respect shouldn't depend on knowing someone's resume. It should be the default. Victoria flinched as if she'd been slapped again. Evelyn, who had been standing near the back of the room, stepped forward.
Dad would have known.
Everyone turned to look at her.
My father,
Evelyn continued, her voice steady despite the emotion in her eyes.
Richard Sterling. He built this company on the principle that every person mattered. Every employee, from the CEO to the janitor. He would have known who Marcus Webb was. Not because of his medals, but because he would have taken the time to ask.
Victoria's face hardened.
Your father was a better leader than you'll ever be.
Evelyn's words cut like a blade.
He believed in people. You believe in power. And now you're standing in a room full of military leaders trying to close an $800 million deal, and the man you humiliated in your own lobby is more respected than you'll ever be.
The silence that followed was devastating. Harrison cleared his throat. Mrs. Sterling, I think we've seen enough.
Wait!
Victoria's voice cracked. The contract is no longer under consideration. Harrison gathered his papers. The Pentagon doesn't do business with companies that treat their people like garbage, especially not companies that treat heroes like garbage. You can't, I can, and I am. Harrison looked at Marcus one more time. Commander Webb, it was an honor to see you again. I'm sorry it was under these circumstances. Marcus nodded. Take care of yourself, General. Harrison walked toward the door, his delegation following. One by one they passed Marcus, and one by one they acknowledged him. A nod, a salute, a murmured word of respect. The colonel paused beside him. If you ever want back in, sir, there's always a place for men like you. I appreciate that, Colonel, but my daughter needs me more. She smiled. Understood. Semper Fi, Commander. Semper Fi. The delegation filed out. The investors followed, murmuring among themselves. The room emptied until only 4 people remained: Victoria, Evelyn, Daniel, and Marcus. Victoria stood at the head of the table, her hands gripping the edge so tightly her knuckles had gone white.
You did this, she whispered. You planned this.
Marcus shook his head. I just came to work, ma'am, same as every day.
You ruined me.
No. He picked up his mop. You ruined yourself. I was just the mirror. He turned and walked toward the door. Behind him, he could hear Victoria's breathing, ragged, uneven, the breathing of someone whose world had just collapsed. This isn't over, she called after him. Marcus paused at the door. He didn't turn around. Yes, ma'am, it is. He walked out. The hallway was empty now. The camera crews gone, the assistants scattered. The carefully orchestrated production reduced to rubble. Marcus made his way to the service elevator, his footsteps echoing in the silence. His phone buzzed. A text from the school. S.T. Mary's Elementary. Reminder: early dismissal today at 2:30 p.m. He checked his watch. 1:47. If he left now, he could make it. He took the elevator down to the maintenance closet, returned his mop and bucket, and changed out of his uniform. His street clothes felt strange after so many hours in blue. Lighter somehow. Freer. As he walked toward the exit, a voice called out behind him. Marcus! He turned. Evelyn was hurrying toward him, her heels clicking against the marble.
Wait, please.
He waited. She stopped in front of him, slightly out of breath.
I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for everything.
You already apologized.
I know, but that was before.
She struggled for words.
What happened in there? I didn't plan that. I didn't know Harrison would react that way. I know. But I'm glad he did. She met his eyes. My mother needed to see what she's become. Maybe now she'll... She trailed off, shaking her head. I don't know. Maybe nothing will change.
Maybe she's too far gone. People can change, Marcus said quietly, if they want to badly enough.
Do you believe that?
He thought about his own life, his own changes, the man he'd been and the man he'd become. I have to believe it, he said finally. Otherwise, what's the point? Evelyn smiled, a sad, tired smile.
You're a good man, Marcus Webb.
I try to be.
What will you do now?
He checked his watch again. Right now, I'm going to pick up my daughter from school. After that, he shrugged. I'll figure it out.
If you need anything, a reference, a new job, anything, please let me know.
I appreciate that. He turned to go, then paused. Evelyn?
Yes?
Your father, Richard. I looked him up, read some articles about him. Her expression softened.
And?
He sounds like a man who understood what matters. You've got his eyes. Don't lose that. Evelyn's own eyes glistened.
Thank you, Marcus, for everything.
He nodded once, then walked out into the afternoon sun. The city sprawled around him, loud, chaotic, indifferent. Millions of people living their lives, fighting their battles, carrying their invisible burdens. He was just one of them now, anonymous again, ordinary. But as he walked toward the bus stop, his phone buzzed one more time. Lily.
Daddy, are you coming? I can't wait to see you.
He smiled and typed back. Marcus. On my way, sweetheart. I'll be there soon. Some battles ended with medals and parades. Others ended with a quiet walk to a bus stop and the little girl waiting to be picked up from school. Marcus knew which one mattered more. He boarded the bus, found a seat near the back, and watched the city slide past the window. His chest still felt tight, but it was a different kind of tightness now. Not anxiety, not fear, but something closer to release. For 8 years, he'd carried the weight of who he used to be. Today, that weight had been lifted. Not because the world finally knew his name, not because generals saluted and executives stumbled, but because he'd looked into the eyes of a woman who thought she was powerful and shown her what real power looked like. It looked like dignity. It looked like restraint. It looked like a man who had nothing to prove and everything to protect. The bus rumbled on, and Marcus Webb closed his eyes and let himself rest. For the first time in a long time, he felt at peace. The news broke before Marcus even made it home. His phone started buzzing on the bus, text after text, call after call, numbers he didn't recognize, names he hadn't heard in years. By the time he reached Lily's school, his voicemail was full. He ignored all of it. Lily came running out of the building the moment she saw him, her backpack bouncing, her face bright with the uncomplicated joy of a child who doesn't yet know how cruel the world can be.
Daddy!
He scooped her up and held her tight. Hey, sweetheart. How was school?
Good. We learned about butterflies. Did you know they start as caterpillars? And then they go in a cocoon and come out all different.
I did know that.
It's called metamorphosis. That's a big word, right?
Very big word. I'm proud of you. She beamed and wrapped her arms around his neck.
Can we get ice cream?
Sure, baby. We can get ice cream. They walked hand in hand to the corner store, Lily chattering about her day while Marcus tried to push everything else out of his mind. The boardroom. Harrison. Victoria's face when she realized who he was. The weight of 1,000 eyes finally seeing him. None of it mattered right now. Only this. Only her. They got ice cream, rainbow sprinkles again, and sat on a bench outside the store.
Lily ate hers with the focused intensity of a child on a mission, and Marcus watched her, memorizing the moment. "Daddy?" "Yes, sweetheart?" "Are you famous?" The question caught him off guard. "What makes you ask that?" "Tommy said his mom saw something on her phone. About you. She said you were a hero." Marcus's chest tightened. "What else did Tommy say?" "He said his mom cried, and then she hugged him really tight." Lily looked up at him with those big, innocent eyes. "Why would she cry about you?" Marcus set down his ice cream. He reached out and brushed a strand of hair from his daughter's face. "A long time ago," he said slowly, "before you were born, Daddy had a different job. A job where I helped people who were in trouble." "Like a fireman?" "Kind of like a fireman, yes." "Did you save people?" "I tried to." "Did it work?" Marcus thought about nightfall, about the 17 lives he'd pulled from that burning compound, about the 6 men who hadn't come home. "Sometimes," he said. "Not always, but sometimes." Lily considered this with the gravity of a 9-year-old philosopher. "I think you're a hero, Daddy." "Yeah?" "Uh-huh." "Because you always save me when I have bad dreams. And you make the best grilled cheese. And you never forget to pick me up from school." Marcus laughed, a real laugh, the kind that loosens something in his chest. "Those are pretty good reasons. The best reasons." He pulled her into a hug, ice cream and all. "I love you, Lily." "I love you too, Daddy." They finished their ice cream and walked home as the sun began to set. The apartment felt smaller than usual, the walls closing in as the weight of the day settled onto Marcus's shoulders. He helped Lily with her homework, made dinner, read her a story, and tucked her into bed. Then he sat alone in the darkness and finally looked at his phone. 237 missed calls, 89 text messages, 14 voicemails. News alerts filled his notifications. He scrolled through the headlines without really reading them. Billionaire CEO humiliates war hero. Video goes viral. Medal of Honor recipient working as janitor. Treated like furniture. Sterling Corp stock plummets after Pentagon walkout. Who is Marcus Webb? The hero America forgot. He turned off the phone and dropped it on the coffee table. The silence pressed in around him. He thought about calling Ray, about reaching out to some of his old contacts, about doing something, anything, to feel less alone. Instead, he just sat there, staring at the wall, letting the silence do its work. A knock at the door. Marcus tensed. It was nearly 10 p.m. No one knocked on his door at 10 p.m. He moved quietly to the door and looked through the peephole. His breath caught. Evelyn Sterling stood in the hallway, her arms wrapped around herself, her face pale and drawn. He opened the door. "I'm sorry," she said immediately. "I know it's late. I know I shouldn't be here, but I didn't know where else to go." "How did you find my address?" "Daniel, please don't be angry at him. I needed to see you." Marcus studied her face. She looked like she'd been crying. Her mascara was smudged, her eyes red-rimmed. She looked like a woman who had just watched her world fall apart. He stepped aside. "Come in." She walked past him into the small apartment, her heels clicking against the worn linoleum. She looked around, at the second-hand furniture, the crayon drawings on the refrigerator, the stack of library books on the coffee table. "This is where you live," she said quietly. "This is where we live, Lily and me." Evelyn turned to face him. "I need to tell you something. About my mother." "Is she okay?" "No." Evelyn's voice cracked. "She's not okay. She's falling apart." The board called an emergency meeting. They're talking about removing her as CEO.
Marcus didn't respond.
The stock dropped 18% in 4 hours, Evelyn continued. Investors are pulling out. The Pentagon contract is gone.
There are rumors of lawsuits, investigations, everything. She shook her head.
She built that company from nothing, Marcus. It was her whole life. And now it's crumbling.
She did that to herself.
I know she did. But
Evelyn's eyes filled with tears.
She's still my mother.
Marcus walked to the kitchen and poured 2 glasses of water. He handed one to Evelyn and sat down across from her. What do you want me to say?
I don't know. I don't know why I came here.
She took a shaky breath.
I think I just needed to be around someone who sees things clearly, who doesn't lie or manipulate or play games.
I'm not a therapist, Evelyn.
I know. I'm not asking you to fix anything.
She looked at him with something like desperation.
How do you do it? How do you stay so calm when everything is chaos?
Marcus thought about the question. Really thought about it. You learn, he said finally. When you've been through enough, you learn that panic doesn't help. Fear doesn't help. The only thing that helps is staying focused on what matters.
And what matters to you?
He nodded toward Lily's closed bedroom door. Her. Everything else is noise. Evelyn followed his gaze.
She's lucky to have you.
I'm lucky to have her. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Evelyn spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper.
My mother wants to talk to you.
Marcus went still. Why?
I don't know. She called me an hour ago. She was different, quiet. She said she needed to apologize. To you, in person.
I don't need her apology.
Maybe she needs to give it.
Marcus looked at Evelyn, at the exhaustion in her eyes, the desperate hope in her voice. She wanted this to mean something. She wanted her mother to change, to be better, to prove that the woman who had raised her wasn't a monster. He understood that hope. He'd felt it himself once, for people who had let him down. Where is she? He asked.
At the office. She hasn't left since the meeting. She's just sitting there, in the dark.
Marcus checked his watch. 10:23 p.m. I can't leave Lily alone.
I'll stay with her.
Evelyn said it quickly, like she'd been rehearsing.
I know that's a lot to ask, but I'll stay. I'll be right here. You can call the neighbor, you can set up a camera, whatever you need. But please, Marcus, please just talk to her.
He studied Evelyn's face. She wasn't playing games. She wasn't manipulating. She was a daughter watching her mother drown and reaching for any lifeline she could find. If Lily wakes up,
I'll call you immediately. I promise.
Marcus stood and walked to Lily's door. He opened it quietly and looked at his sleeping daughter, her chest rising and falling with a rhythm of peaceful dreams. He closed the door and turned back to Evelyn. 1 hour. Then I'm coming back.
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you.
He grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. Then he stopped. Evelyn.
Yes?
If anything happens to my daughter while I'm gone, there's nowhere on earth you'll be able to hide. She met his eyes without flinching.
I understand.
He nodded once and walked out into the night. The Sterling Corp building looked different in the dark. During the day, it gleamed with corporate arrogance, all glass and chrome and sharp edges. But now, with only a few windows lit, it looked almost vulnerable, almost human. Marcus entered through the maintenance entrance. Old habits died hard, and took the service elevator to the executive floor. The hallways were empty, the offices dark. His footsteps echoed in the silence. Victoria's corner office was the only one with a light on. He stopped at the door. Through the glass, he could see her sitting at her desk, her back to the window, her head in her hands. She looked smaller than she had in the boardroom, diminished. He knocked. She looked up. Even from a distance, he could see that she'd been crying. Her makeup was ruined, her hair disheveled, her designer suit wrinkled and stained. She stood and walked to the door, opening it slowly. "You came." "Your daughter asked me to." Victoria nodded, as if she'd expected nothing more. "Will you come in?" Marcus stepped inside. The office smelled like expensive perfume and desperation. Files were scattered across the desk. A half-empty bottle of whiskey sat next to a crystal glass. "Can I get you something?" Victoria asked. "A drink?" "I don't drink." "Right, of course." She laughed bitterly. "The war hero doesn't drink. Probably doesn't smoke either. Probably wakes up at 5 a.m. and runs 10 miles before breakfast." "I wake up at 5 because my daughter needs me to. I don't run anymore. Bad knees. And I quit smoking 15 years ago when my wife asked me to." Victoria's expression flickered. "Your wife? She passed?" "Cancer. 4 years ago." "I'm sorry." "Are you?" The question hung in the air between them. Victoria turned away, walking to the window that overlooked the city. "I don't know how to do this," she said quietly. "Do what?" "Apologize. Mean it." She pressed her hand against the glass. "I've spent my whole life fighting, clawing my way up, crushing anyone who got in my way. It's the only thing I know how to do. Then maybe it's time to learn something new." She turned to face him. "You must hate me." "I don't hate you, Miss Sterling. I don't even think about you." The words landed like blows. Victoria flinched. "That's worse," she whispered. "Being hated means you matter. Being nothing means—" "It means what?" "It means I failed." Her voice broke. "Not just with you. With everything. My company. My daughter. My life." She shook her head. "I built all of this because I thought it would make me powerful. Make me safe. Make me someone who could never be hurt again. And it didn't work." Tears streamed down her face. "I'm more alone now than I've ever been. My board wants me gone. My investors are running. My own daughter looks at me like I'm a stranger." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "And the man I treated like garbage turns out to be more respected than I'll ever be." Marcus watched her cry. He felt nothing. No satisfaction, no pity, no rage. Just a distant recognition of a human being in pain. "You want to know the truth?" he said. Victoria looked at him. "When you threw that coffee on me, I thought about killing you." Her face went white. "Not seriously," he continued. "Not a real plan, just a flash. The way you think about swatting a fly. I've killed people, Miss Sterling. A lot of people. And in that moment, you were just another target." "Then why didn't you do anything?" "Because that's not who I am anymore." He took a step closer. "I spent 15 years learning how to destroy things, how to break people, how to win at any cost. And you know what I learned?" "What?" "That winning at any cost isn't winning. It's just a different kind of losing." Victoria stared at him, tears still streaming. "The people I killed, some of them deserved it. Some of them didn't. And I have to live with that every day. I have to look at my daughter and know that her father has blood on his hands." His voice hardened. "So when you threw coffee on me, I made a choice. I chose not to react. Not because I'm weak, not because I'm afraid, but because my daughter needs a father who knows how to walk away from a fight." "And if she didn't need you?" "Then we wouldn't be having this conversation." The silence stretched between them. Finally, Victoria spoke. "I'm sorry." The words were simple,
quiet, real. For everything, she continued. For the coffee, for the slap, for the things I said, for treating you like you didn't exist. She took a shaky breath. I know it doesn't change anything. I know I can't undo what I did, but I needed you to hear it.
Marcus studied her face. She wasn't performing. She wasn't playing a role. For the first time since he'd met her, Victoria Sterling was being honest. I accept your apology, he said. Victoria's eyes widened. You do? I accept it. I don't forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I accept that you're sorry, and that counts for something. What do I do now? That's not my problem. I know, but I'm asking anyway. Marcus looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time. He saw the fear underneath the arrogance, the loneliness underneath the power, the broken child underneath the ruthless executive. You want advice? He said. Yes. Stop fighting. What? You've spent your whole life fighting. Fighting to get ahead. Fighting to stay on top. Fighting to prove you're better than everyone else. He shook his head. But the best leaders I ever knew weren't fighters. They were builders. They didn't tear people down, they lifted them up. Victoria's brow furrowed. I don't know how to do that. Then learn. You said you don't know how to apologize? Now you do. One step at a time.
And if it's too late? If I've already burned everything down?
Then you rebuild from the ashes. That's what people do. That's what I did.
Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked the question Marcus had been waiting for. What happened to you? After the military? After your wife? What made you become this? A janitor? A man who doesn't need to prove anything? Marcus thought about how to answer. He thought about Sarah, dying slowly in that hospital bed, holding his hand and making him promise to take care of Lily. He thought about the months after the funeral, when he couldn't get out of bed, when the only thing that kept him alive was a little girl who needed her daddy. I lost everything, he said finally. My career, my identity, my wife. I had nothing left except my daughter and a choice. What choice? Whether to let the loss destroy me or let it remake me. He met her eyes. I chose to be remade. Victoria's face crumpled. I don't know if I'm strong enough for that. You won't know until you try. He turned and walked toward the door. Marcus. He stopped, but didn't turn around. Thank you. For coming. For listening. For not, she struggled for words. For not being what I would have been in your position. What would you have been? Cruel. Marcus nodded slowly. Cruelty is easy. It's the one thing I learned that I wish I could forget. He walked out of the office, down the dark hallway, and into the elevator. As the doors closed, he caught one last glimpse of Victoria Sterling, standing alone in her glass tower, surrounded by everything money could buy, and nothing it couldn't. He got home at 11:47 p.m. Evelyn was sitting on the couch, phone in her hand, eyes red from crying. How is she? Evelyn asked. Broken. But maybe that's what she needs to be. Did she apologize? Yes. Did you forgive her? No. Evelyn nodded, as if she'd expected nothing more. Lily's fine. She woke up once, bad dream, but I sang to her, and she went back to sleep. Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. Thank you. It was the least I could do. Evelyn stood and gathered her things. Marcus, I know this doesn't fix anything, but I'm going to try. With my mother, with the company, with everything. That's all anyone can do. She paused at the door. Will you be okay? I've been worse. She smiled sadly. I believe that.
She left, and Marcus stood alone in his small apartment, surrounded by crayon drawings and library books, and the quiet breath of his sleeping daughter. He walked to Lily's door and opened it softly. She was curled up under her blanket, her stuffed bear clutched to her chest, her face peaceful in the moonlight. He sat down on the edge of her bed and watched her sleep.
"I love you," he whispered, "more than anything in this world."
She stirred slightly, a small smile crossing her face, then settled back into dreams. Marcus stayed there for a long time, watching over his daughter the way he'd once watched over his men, guarding what mattered, protecting what couldn't protect itself. Outside, the city hummed with a million stories, a million struggles, a million people fighting battles no one would ever see. But in this room, in this moment, there was only love, and that was enough. 6 months later, the world had moved on. The news cycle had churned through the Sterling Corp scandal and spit it out, replacing it with fresher outrages, newer villains, more exciting controversies. The viral video of Victoria Sterling humiliating a janitor had faded from trending topics, buried under the endless avalanche of content that defined modern life. But for the people at the center of that story, nothing would ever be the same. Marcus Webb stood in front of his bathroom mirror, adjusting a tie he hadn't worn in years. The fabric felt strange against his neck, constricting, formal, foreign. He'd spent so long in janitor's blues that anything else felt like a costume.
"Daddy, you look fancy!"
He turned to find Lily standing in the doorway, her eyes wide with wonder. She was wearing a new dress, purple, her favorite color, and her hair was pulled back in a neat braid that had taken him 3 YouTube tutorials to master. "You think so?"
"Like a prince!"
Marcus laughed. "I don't know about that, sweetheart."
"Are we really going to a party?"
"It's not exactly a party, it's more like a ceremony."
"What's a ceremony?"
"It's when people get together to say thank you, to remember things that matter." Lily considered this with the seriousness of a 9-year-old philosopher.
"Will there be cake?"
"Probably."
"Then I like ceremonies."
Marcus knelt down and adjusted her collar, his heart swelling with a love so fierce it almost hurt. 6 months ago, he'd been invisible, a ghost, a man who had traded his identity for anonymity and convinced himself it was enough. Now, everything was different. His phone buzzed. A text from Evelyn. "Car's outside. Ready when you are." Marcus took a deep breath and looked at his reflection one more time. The man staring back at him wasn't the same man who had pushed a mop through Sterling Corp's lobby. That man had been hiding. This man was finally ready to be seen. "Come on, baby girl," he said, taking Lily's hand. "Let's go say thank you." The car that waited outside their apartment building was sleek and black, the kind of vehicle Marcus associated with generals and politicians. Evelyn sat in the back seat, dressed in an elegant navy gown that made her look older, more serious. "You clean up well, Commander," she said as Marcus and Lily climbed in.
"Don't call me that."
Force of habit. She smiled and turned her attention to Lily.
"And who is this beautiful young lady?"
Lily beamed.
"I'm Lily. Are you the nice lady who stayed with me when Daddy went to see the mean lady?"
Evelyn's smile faltered slightly. "I am. It's nice to officially meet you, Lily."
"Daddy says you helped him. He says you're one of the good ones."
"Did he now?" Marcus cleared his throat. She has her mother's gift for repeating things at the worst possible moment. "I think it's charming." Evelyn looked at him, her expression softening. "She's wonderful, Marcus. You've done an amazing job." "She's done all the hard work. I just showed up." The car pulled away from the curb, merging into the evening traffic. Through the tinted windows, Marcus watched the city slide past. The same city he'd walked through 1,000 times, invisible and unnoticed. Tonight, that would change. "Are you nervous?" Evelyn asked. "I don't get nervous." "That's a lie." "Fine, I'm terrified." She laughed, a real laugh, the kind he rarely heard from her. "You've commanded soldiers in combat. You've faced death more times than most people can imagine. And you're terrified of a room full of rich people in fancy clothes?" "Combat makes sense. Rich people don't." "Fair point." They rode in silence for a few minutes. Then Lily spoke up. "Miss Evelyn?" "Yes, sweetheart." "Is your mommy coming tonight?" The question hung in the air. Marcus watched Evelyn's face carefully, saw the flicker of pain that crossed her features before she smoothed it away. "Yes," Evelyn said quietly. "My mother will be there." "Is she still mean?" "Lily," Marcus warned. "It's okay," Evelyn said. She looked at Lily with a sad smile. "My mother is learning. She made some big mistakes, and now she's trying to fix them. It's hard, but she's trying." Lily nodded solemnly. "Daddy says everyone makes mistakes. The important thing is what you do after." Evelyn's eyes glistened. "Your daddy is a very wise man." "I know. He also makes really good grilled cheese." The highest compliment. The car pulled up to the Sterling Corp building, but it didn't look the same. The cold, corporate facade had been transformed. Banners hung from the entrance, emblazoned with a new logo, the Webb Foundation. Spotlights swept the sky. A red carpet stretched from the curb to the doors. Marcus's stomach clenched. "What is this?" "This," Evelyn said, "is what happens when my mother decides to do something right for once in her life." They stepped out of the car into a storm of flashing cameras. Reporters shouted questions. Security guards held back the crowd. It was chaos. The kind of chaos Marcus had spent 8 years avoiding. But Lily's hand was in his, and that made everything bearable. "Mr. Webb! Commander Webb! Over here! Is it true you're starting a Veterans Foundation?" "Commander, how does it feel to be honored by the company that humiliated you?" Marcus ignored all of it. He kept his eyes forward, his grip on Lily's hand firm but gentle, and walked through the gauntlet of attention like he'd walked through 1,000 firefights, one step at a time. Inside, the lobby had been transformed into a ballroom. Hundreds of people in formal attire filled the space. Military officers, business executives, politicians, celebrities. A string quartet played softly in the corner. Waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres. And at the center of it all, standing on a small stage, was Victoria Sterling. She looked different. The sharp edges had softened. The predatory gleam in her eyes had dimmed to something almost humble. She was still powerful, still commanding, but the cruelty that had defined her was gone. Or maybe just buried deeper. Marcus couldn't tell yet. "Commander Webb." She stepped down from the stage and approached him, her movements careful, deferential. "Thank you for coming." "Your daughter didn't give me much choice." Victoria smiled, a small, sad smile. "She's persistent. She gets that from me." She looked down at Lily. "And this must be the famous Lily I've heard so much about." Lily hid behind Marcus's leg. "You're the coffee lady." Victoria flinched. "Yes, I am. And I'm very sorry about that." "Daddy says sorry is just a word. Actions are what matter." "Your daddy is absolutely right." Victoria knelt down, bringing herself to Lily's eye level. "That's why we're here tonight, to try to make up for the words with actions." Lily studied her with the unblinking intensity of a child who hasn't yet learned to hide her judgments. "Are you going to be nice to Daddy now?" "I'm going to try. Very hard. Every day." "Okay,
But if you're mean again, I'm going to tell everyone." Victoria's eyes glistened. "That's fair." She stood and turned to Marcus, her composure cracking slightly. "I know this doesn't erase what I did. Nothing can. But I wanted to do something that might matter." "What exactly are we doing here, Miss Sterling?" "Victoria, please." She took a breath. "Tonight, we're announcing the launch of the Webb Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting veterans transitioning back to civilian life. Housing assistance, job placement, mental health services, family support." She paused. "It's being funded with $100 million of my personal fortune, and it bears your name, with your permission." Marcus stared at her. "You're giving away $100 million? It's a start." "A start?" "I've spent my entire life accumulating wealth, building power, crushing anyone who got in my way." Victoria's voice dropped. "And you know what I realized? None of it matters. When I'm gone, no one will remember how much money I made. They'll only remember how I treated people." "That's quite a realization." "I had a good teacher." The crowd was beginning to notice them. Murmurs spread through the room. People pointed, whispered, angled for a better view of the man whose face had been plastered across every news outlet for weeks. "I should address the guests," Victoria said, "but I wanted to talk to you first, to make sure this was okay." "It's your money. You can do whatever you want with it." "But it's your name, and your legacy. I won't use it without your blessing." Marcus looked around the room, at the generals in their dress uniforms, the veterans in their ill-fitting suits, the young soldiers with haunted eyes who reminded him of the man he used to be. He thought about all the people who'd come home from war with nothing, who'd been forgotten by the country they'd served, who'd slipped through the cracks of a society that didn't know how to hold them. "Do it," he said finally. "But make sure it actually helps people, not just rich people feeling good about themselves. Real help, for real people." "I will. I promise." Victoria turned and walked toward the stage. The crowd quieted as she approached the microphone, every eye in the room fixed on the woman who had become a symbol of corporate cruelty and was now trying to become something else. "Good evening," she began. "Thank you all for being here. I know some of you are wondering why Victoria Sterling, of all people, is standing in front of you talking about veterans and charity and redemption." A few uncomfortable laughs rippled through the crowd. "6 months ago, I humiliated a man in the lobby of this building. I threw coffee on him. I slapped him. I called him nothing." Victoria's voice wavered but held. "What I didn't know, what I didn't care to know, was that this man had spent 15 years serving our country in ways most of us can't imagine. He saved 17 lives in a single mission. He lost brothers in combat. He earned the Congressional Medal of Honor." The room was absolutely silent. "And after all that, he came home to take care of his dying wife, to raise his daughter alone, to live a quiet life of dignity and purpose." Victoria paused. "And I treated him like garbage." She looked directly at Marcus. "Commander Marcus Webb is the finest man I've ever met. Not because of his medals, not because of his service, but because when I attacked him, he didn't attack back. When I humiliated him, he didn't humiliate me. When I tried to break him, he simply stood there, unbroken." Tears were streaming down Victoria's face now. She didn't wipe them away. "That kind of strength isn't taught in business school. It isn't learned in boardrooms. It's forged in sacrifice and loss and love." She took a shaky breath. "So tonight, I want to honor that strength, not just in Commander Webb, but in every veteran who has given everything for this country and received nothing in return.
She gestured toward a large screen, which lit up with the Webb Foundation logo. The Webb Foundation will provide housing for homeless veterans, job training for those struggling to find work, mental health services for those carrying invisible wounds, family support for those trying to hold their lives together. Victoria's voice strengthened. This is not charity. This is debt. A debt that America owes to the men and women who served, and a debt that I owe to the man I wronged. The crowd erupted into applause. It started slowly, then built into a thunderous ovation that shook the crystal chandeliers. Victoria raised her hand for silence. But I don't want to be the one to launch this foundation. That honor should belong to someone who actually earned it. She turned and extended her hand toward Marcus. Commander Webb, will you please join me? Every eye in the room turned to Marcus. He felt Lily's hand tighten in his. He felt the weight of 1,000 expectations pressing down on him. He felt the old instinct to disappear, to fade into the background, to be invisible. But then he looked at his daughter, and she smiled up at him with those big, trusting eyes. "Go, Daddy," she whispered. "They're waiting for you." He walked to the stage. The applause intensified as he climbed the steps, as he stood next to Victoria, as he looked out at the sea of faces, some admiring, some curious, some tearful. Victoria handed him the microphone. "I'm not good at speeches," he said. Laughter rippled through the crowd. "I spent most of my life learning how to be quiet, how to be invisible, how to do my job without anyone noticing." He paused. "But sometimes, being noticed matters. Not for me, I don't need attention. But for the men and women who served beside me, for the ones who didn't come home, for the ones who came home broken and were told to fix themselves." He thought about the faces of his fallen teammates, about the letters he'd written to their families, about the promises he'd made at their graves. "I had 6 brothers in my unit," he continued. "Rodriguez, Thompson, Chen, Williams, Okonkwo, Reeves. They followed me into hell, and they didn't come out. Every day I think about them. Every day I ask myself if I could have done more." His voice cracked. He let it. "This foundation isn't about me. It's about them. It's about every veteran who needs help and doesn't know where to find it. It's about every family that's been torn apart by war. It's about proving that this country doesn't forget its heroes, even when it seems like it does." He looked at Victoria. "Mrs. Sterling and I didn't start out as friends. We started out as enemies. But she's trying to change, and if there's one thing I learned in combat, it's that people can change. They can become better. They can find redemption." He turned back to the crowd. "So tonight, I accept this honor. Not for myself, but for everyone who served. And I make this promise. As long as I'm breathing, I will fight for my brothers and sisters in uniform. Not with weapons, not with violence, but with everything I have." The applause was deafening. Marcus handed the microphone back to Victoria and stepped away from the spotlight. But before he could leave the stage, General Harrison stepped forward from the crowd. "Commander Webb." Marcus stopped. Harrison walked to the stage, his dress uniform gleaming with medals. He was carrying something, a small velvet box. "I should have done this years ago," Harrison said, his voice thick with emotion. "When you retired, I made promises. I said your service would never be forgotten. Then I forgot. I got caught up in politics and contracts and my own ambition." He opened the box, revealing a medal, the Distinguished Service Cross, the second highest military decoration. "This was supposed to be presented to you at a ceremony that never happened. Budget cuts, they told me. Scheduling conflicts." Harrison shook his head. "Excuses, all of it. The truth is, I let you down. I let all of you down. He pinned the medal to Marcus's chest. Commander Marcus Webb, on behalf of a grateful nation, thank you for your service, for your sacrifice, for showing us what honor really looks like. Harrison saluted. Marcus returned it. And in that moment, something that had been broken for 8 years finally began to heal. After the ceremony, after the speeches, after the endless handshakes and photographs, Marcus found himself standing alone on the balcony overlooking the city. The night air was cool, carrying the distant sounds of traffic and sirens and life.
"Daddy?" He turned to find Lily walking toward him, her purple dress slightly rumpled, her braid coming undone. "Hey, sweetheart. You should be with Miss Evelyn." "I wanted to find you." She climbed onto a chair to be closer to his height. "Are you happy?" Marcus thought about the question. Really thought about it. "Yeah, baby. I think I am." "Because of the medals?" "No. Because of you." Lily smiled. "I'm glad you're not invisible anymore, Daddy." "What do you mean?" "Before, people didn't see you, but now they do. They see how special you are." She reached out and touched his face. "I always saw it, though, even before." Marcus felt tears burning in his eyes, the first tears he'd allowed himself in years. "I love you, Lily." "I love you too, Daddy. To the moon and back." To the moon and back. He pulled her into a hug, holding her tight against his chest, feeling her small heartbeat against his own. Behind them, the door opened. Evelyn stepped onto the balcony, followed by Victoria. "Sorry to interrupt," Evelyn said softly, "but there's someone who wants to say goodbye." Victoria approached slowly, her earlier composure replaced by something raw and uncertain. "Commander Webb, Marcus." She struggled for words. "I know tonight doesn't make up for what I did. I know a foundation and a ceremony and all the money in the world can't erase the way I treated you." "You're right," Marcus said. "It can't." Victoria nodded, accepting the truth. "But I'm going to keep trying. Every day. For as long as it takes." "Why?" "Because you taught me something." She looked at him with eyes that held no guile, no calculation, just honesty. "You taught me that dignity isn't something you earn with money or power. It's something you carry inside yourself, no matter what anyone else does to you." Marcus studied her face. He saw the woman who had humiliated him in that lobby. He saw the woman who had cried in her office, alone and broken. He saw the woman who had given away $100 million to try to make things right. "I forgive you," he said. Victoria's eyes widened. "What?" "I forgive you. Not because you deserve it. You don't. Not yet. But because holding on to anger is too heavy. I've carried enough weight in my life." Victoria's face crumpled. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "Thank you. Thank you, Marcus." "Don't thank me. Just be better." "I will. I promise." She turned and walked back inside, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Evelyn gave Marcus a grateful look, then followed her mother. Marcus stood alone with his daughter, looking out at the city that had finally seen him. "Daddy?" "Yeah, baby?" "Can we go home now? I'm tired." He laughed, a real laugh, full and free. "Yeah, sweetheart. Let's go home." They walked through the ballroom hand in hand, past the generals and executives and politicians, past the cameras and reporters and crowds. No one stopped them. No one demanded anything. They just watched, with respect, with admiration, with something that looked like awe. At the door, Marcus paused and looked back one last time. The Sterling Corp lobby, the same lobby where he'd been humiliated, where he'd stood with coffee burning his chest and cruelty ringing in his ears, was now filled with people who saw him. Not as a janitor, not as furniture, but as a man,
He smiled. Then he walked out into the night, his daughter's hand in his, ready to start the next chapter of a life that had finally found its purpose. The car was waiting. The driver opened the door. Lily climbed in first, already half asleep. Marcus paused at the curb and looked up at the sky.
Somewhere up there, past the light pollution and the clouds, the same stars were shining that had shone over every battlefield he'd ever walked. The same stars that had witnessed his worst moments and his best. The same stars that Sarah had loved to watch from their backyard, back when life was simple and the future seemed infinite. "I did it, Sarah," he whispered. "I found my way back." The wind stirred, carrying the faint scent of jasmine, her favorite flower. He climbed into the car and closed the door. "Where to, Commander?" the driver asked. Marcus looked at Lily, curled up on the seat beside him, her face peaceful in sleep. "Home," he said. "Take us home." The car pulled away from the curb, leaving behind the lights and the noise and the chaos. Ahead, the road stretched into darkness, unknown, uncertain, full of possibility. But Marcus wasn't afraid. He'd spent his life walking into darkness. He'd learned that light wasn't something you found. It was something you carried. And tonight, for the first time in years, he was carrying enough to light the way, not just for himself, for everyone. Some men chase power their whole lives and never find it. Others carry it quietly, without fanfare, without recognition, waiting for the moment when the world is finally ready to see. Marcus Webb had waited long enough. Now it was time to shine.